Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. Today I'll be reading my subscribers' scary stories. So if you guys are interested, grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hey Daisy, to preface the story, I should say that I grew up in a super religious household. I was raised Pentecostal. You know, the church folks that speak in tongues, fall back when the Holy Spirit touches them, and scream and shout during church services. As such, my mom has always been really into the angels and demons facet of Christianity. I'm in grad school and the fall semester is my favorite time of the year. By that, I mean that the August to December months are my absolute favorite of the year. The weather cools down, the leaves change, and everything feels cozy. I made a commitment to myself long ago that no matter what, I would try my hardest to be present and enjoy my favorite months. So there I was, enjoying my November, going to school, working, and gorging myself on every pumpkin spice flavored thing imaginable, when something stopped me dead in my tracks. I don't know what happened, but something changed from day to night. All of a sudden, I couldn't focus on my schoolwork whatsoever. I had this disgusting headache that was only on my forehead, right in between my eyebrows, and I felt this overwhelmingly heavy feeling that I can only describe as being the absolute worst lethargy I've ever felt in my life. As I tried to fall asleep at night, I physically couldn't. I would sleep for a handful of minutes and wake up with that pressure on my forehead, feeling even stronger. Somehow, I managed to power through the next few days when suddenly a random conversation with my brother brought me back to reality. I was sitting at my desk trying to finish a discussion post for the week when my brother came in asking me if he could nap on my bed. I agreed, asking him what was wrong with his bed. He was quiet for a few moments before finally responding, "I don't know. I just haven't been able to sleep lately." Not thinking anything of his reply, I echoed his sentiments. I submitted my homework and, out of pure exhaustion and frustration, laid on my bed next to my brother. He was still awake and could see something was bothering me, so he asked me what was wrong. Through an exasperated sigh, I tell him that I've been feeling off all week long and that I'm beyond tired and weak for no apparent reason. He shoots up from the bed and widens his eye before exclaiming, "Me too!" I didn't reply much as I don't think my brain registered what he said. But looking back on it, something was festering in my house. Later that night, I was at the grocery store with my mom and brother. By that point, I was beyond checked out. I was mindlessly holding onto the shopping cart while following my mom around the fluorescent aisles of the store. I felt awful, exhausted, and weak. Couldn't think properly, and I felt like someone was shoving a sharp tool through my forehead and into my brain on a loop. After we left the store, my mom offered to get us dinner at a local burger joint a few minutes away. My brother and I weren't hungry, so only my mom ordered. And while waiting in the drive-thru line, I mentioned to her that my brother and I had both been having a bad week. She peels her eyes from the menu to look at me dead in my eyes. "What do you mean?" I tell her how I've been feeling for the past few days, and my brother jumps in to share how he's feeling. That's when I was taken aback. He described something different than I did. He said that for the past few nights, something kept appearing in his dreams. He said he wasn't sure if it was evil, but he knew it wasn't pleasant. He said that all week, every time he'd close his eyes, he'd feel that presence almost tormenting him. I got an uneasy feeling in my stomach as my mom replied, "I'm sorry, that's my fault. I think I opened a window, and I've been trying to close it." The ride home after the restaurant was quiet. Neither one of us asked my mom for details. Unfortunately, this has happened many times before. I said in the beginning that my mom has an interest in angels and demons, and she's often taken giant research sessions into a topic that never ends up with a good result. Something my brother and I have learned with all of this is not to ask questions. We pulled into our driveway, and between the three of us, collected all the groceries and food and headed inside the house. I unlocked the door and went in first. I stumbled through the dark hallway before setting the groceries down on the kitchen table and turning on the kitchen lights. Something felt and looked wrong. The air inside my house felt unbelievably dark, practically oppressive. Standing in my kitchen felt wrong, like I was violating some unspoken rule. My mom and brother hurried in after me, and they immediately went quiet and stared into the living room. I turned around to see a dense, gray cloud on the ceiling of my house. Everywhere I looked, I saw this thick haze. I rubbed my eyes, thinking my contacts must be dry or warping my vision somehow, but every time I blinked, the cloud didn't move. We were quiet, and the more I registered what was happening, the worse I felt. I looked at my mom and brother, and we all had the same blank expression, only with our eyebrows involuntarily furrowed. My mom ran to her room while calling me to follow. I didn't want to go into her room and see what she was researching, but something made me follow her. I wasn't in control of my body. I was walking, but my steps hitting the floor didn't register in my brain. I felt like my body was made out of air. I made it to her room, and the thick cloud must have covered half the space. I wanted to throw up. I never felt such an insane amount of dread all at once. I could vaguely hear her apologizing as she shuffled through some papers and flipped the pages of a thick book. She showed me a few things that had sigils and symbols covering every inch of the pages. There were pages everywhere on her bed and floor. I couldn't stomach it anymore. I just looked at her and didn't say anything. I walked away from her room and returned to my room. All I remember is my body floating downwards onto my bed and finally being able to find some sleep. The following day, everything and everyone was okay. Things went back to normal that next day. I'm not sure what my mom was trying to do, nor do I care to ask, but I'm thankful she could close the window she opened. I had a stern talk with her a few days later and told her that she needed to stop messing around with that stuff. She reluctantly agreed, but I doubt she'll listen to me. Funnily enough, this hasn't even been the worst experience. She used to be a preacher when I was younger, and my goodness, the things I've seen are insane. I'm not religious that much myself anymore, but I've always stood by this motto. When it comes to supernatural and spiritual stuff, they can't if you don't let them. Anyways, please stay safe, and I'm sending you lots of virtual pumpkin spice and cream cheese muffins. Melvin. Hi Daisy, my name is Katie. So this story I'm about to tell you happened at a one-bedroom apartment my husband and I used to live in with our 8-year-old, who was 4 years old at the time. I apologize if my story is long, but as I recall, you love long stories, so I will give you about 4 stories. We lived next to one other unit. Our unit was so small, you could tell that it was an old unit because all of the cabinets and flooring were pretty old looking. I've always been told that when you have doorways that align with each other, it's a passage, sort of like a portal for the spiritual realm to travel through. I'm not too sure how true that is, but things that happened in this place made me sure of it. With the way our back and front door was set up, they were aligned across each other perfectly. So if you were to walk in our front door, which was the door you would access to get to the courtyard, when you would walk in our place, you would see the back door right across the front door. The back door just led to our alley and where we parked our cars. Anyways, as I was getting ready to tuck her in, my husband told me that he was going to take the trash out. As I was tucking her in, I felt like someone was behind me. Mind you, I was facing towards the window of my room with my back facing towards my room door, which was just my hallway. The place was so old that even if you barely moved our room door, you could hear a little creak. So, as I was laying there, I felt like someone was behind me. I thought it was my husband. I called out, "Babe," and no answer. I thought maybe he already came back from throwing out the trash and getting the mail, but it was quiet. All of a sudden, my daughter tells me, "Mom, I see someone behind you." And girl, when she said that, I shitted bricks. And as much as I knew that she was telling the truth, I kept trying to tell her it was nothing because I was scared as heck myself. But I knew for a fact that she did see something because I believe little kids can see stuff, and this wasn't the first time she mentioned she had seen something in this place. I even turned around and saw nothing, which gave me even more chills because I remember hearing the door creak as if someone was standing in the doorway. When my husband came back, I asked him if he was in the house 5 minutes ago. He replied, "No, I just came back." And that gave me even more chills. Of course, I went to bed like it was nothing, but it was still on my mind as I was going to sleep. Another encounter in that same apartment, I was tucking my daughter in again, but this time my husband was in the living room watching TV, which, by the way, wasn't that far from my room since the apartment was small. As I was laying there tucking in my daughter, who was only 3 at the time, we were just laying there and kind of just talking to each other. As we were talking, out of nowhere, my daughter tells me, "Mom, I see a monster in the closet making faces at me." And that gave me chills right away. I already knew she was most likely telling the truth. And of course, what do? I turn to look at the closet, but I see nothing. So I tried to just tell her to go to sleep and that I'm here to protect her so nothing will happen. So she falls asleep shortly after. But I'm laying there thinking to myself, like, what face did she see? What kind of monster? After thinking to myself, and with my daughter being asleep, I just went back to the living room to finish watching TV with my husband. Now, I was going to tell my husband, but my husband is a kind of person that doesn't like to hear about anything paranormal because he's a firm believer of what you think about, you bring about. So, of course, I go back to the living room like I didn't just hear my daughter say what she said. LOL. So okay, by now you're probably wondering, girl, why didn't you just leave? LOL. Rent was too good at the time for what we had and where we are in, which is California, so we couldn't complain, especially when I hadn't seen anything yet. But eventually, we did move out. So this story is about me taking a day off from work, so it was just me at home by myself. I was trying to do some self-care because, we all need that once in a while, even if that means taking a day off from work. I had just got off the phone with my husband since he was on his lunch break and I was getting ready to eat myself. I was warming up some food in the microwave, and as I was sitting there at my kitchen table, I was scrolling through my phone. All of a sudden, I hear a light whisper. I didn't think too much of it because honestly, I thought it was the fridge making noise, so I didn't think twice. A couple minutes passed by and I hear it again. And now I'm sitting, really thinking to myself like, that was the fridge, right? So I tried to ignore it and go on scrolling. Then I heard another whisper, but this time it was closer to my ear. And girl, when I tell you I grabbed my keys so fast and went out the back door to my car, I left so fast I didn't even put shoes on. As I drove away, I called my husband and went to go park on the street right outside of my alley and was on the phone with my husband explaining to him what just happened. He asked me, "Well, what are you going to do? Just sit outside until I get home?" And I said, hell yes. But then eventually an hour passed and I was like, oh, I'll just go back. So I went back and luckily I didn't hear anything else. So this next encounter is when I saw something myself. It was just another night on a weekday. My husband wanted to go to bed early, so he told me he was going to see me in bed. And usually I don't like to sit in the living room alone to watch TV at night. I don't know why I feel that way, but I've always been that way, and it's only at night. So this time, of course, I decided to just stay up a little longer and stay in our living room to watch TV while my daughter and husband went to bed. The way my living room is set up is like this, where I was sitting in the living room on the couch against the wall directly across from the TV, which was next to the hallway leading to my bathroom and bedroom. My bedroom was the first door to the right, and the bathroom was at the end of my hallway on the left. So where I'm sitting on the couch, you can see the bathroom door perfectly. Everything was normal. I was sitting there watching TV. 10 minutes had passed by, where everything was fine. Then, out of the corner of my eye, where the bathroom door was, I had seen a shadow of something, like peeking out the door, then going back behind the door, then again out the door. So it looked like someone was looking, hiding, then looking and hiding. I thought I was tripping, so I did what you would see in movies. Rubbed my eyes and looked, and I didn't see anything. But at that moment, I was already on edge, like, what the hell did I just see? So I tried to let it go and kept watching TV. Then I saw it one more time and I said, nope, forget this. I turned everything off and went to bed. And let me tell you, it was so hard to fall asleep because out of all of the times my daughter told me she saw something, I finally saw it myself. I couldn't see the face. It was like a silhouette of a person, but I knew it was something. After this day, that's when I would hear scratching noises outside my bedroom window around 10-11 p.m. It sounded like someone was sweeping the floor, but also dragging their feet at the same time. It was like a weird pattern in the noise. It wasn't like one long drag. It sounded like someone was sweeping and then they would stop and then it would start again, but then it sounded like feet dragging. Anyways, I didn't look out the window to find out, but I knew this place was definitely haunted. Shortly after, we moved out and we went to stay with my in-laws. Till this day, I don't know what my daughter saw exactly, and I don't know exactly what that noise was outside my bedroom window. I mean, come on, no one would really be outside at 10-11 p.m. sweeping or just dragging their feet. Anyways, that was it. I hope you enjoyed my stories. I have more to tell, but we'll send in another email when I get the chance. XOXO, Katie. Hi Daisy, I hope you find this well. I hesitated to send this in because I've never spoken about this to anyone in my family except my mother and brother, and it's only come up twice. I was about 9 and my brother was 7. My parents moved us to Brooklyn. There were many strange things happening to my parents. It was believed that a brujo had cursed my father. My mother did not believe in brujos, however, my father did. This curse was apparently done by a niece of my father's and her boyfriend at that time. After this, my father lost his job he'd been with for more than 5 years. He was not well mentally, since this curse was to make him go insane and never work again. He didn't want to look for work. My mom had to work to support us. One day we got home and my father had given our furniture away, sent the rest of our belongings to Puerto Rico. We were left with nothing. No beds, no clothes, nothing except the food in the house. This was not like my father. He'd always supported us and was always responsible. My mother's sister, her husband, and 3 kids lived in Puerto Rico at this time. They were going through worse matters than us, but we were not aware of it. We moved to an apartment that was on the 4th floor of a building. There was another family with 2 children, a brother and a sister, who lived above us. Well, coming home from school, they would see us and start trouble, and we'd end up arguing. This was an everyday occurrence. On the weekends, they would knock on our door and run away. We'd come to the door and no one was there. However, we would hear the laughter, running footsteps, and the door to their apartment slam shut. So we knew the kids were at it again. Well, one night, as my mom, dad, my brother, and I were watching TV, we heard loud knocks on our door. Before she could say anything, my brother and I ran to the door to see who it was. We asked, "Who is it?" but no one answered. We opened the door and no one was there. My brother and I go back and we tell my mom that no one was there. But again, there was another loud knock at the door. This time, my mom goes to the door with us, opens the door, and no one. My brother yells, "You better stop knocking on our door or else." Thinking it was the kids from the upstairs, we went back to watching TV, but then there was a loud knock at the door again. This time, my mother said to ignore it, but the knock at the door would not stop, and it was getting louder. My mother rushed to the door, and we followed, but again, no one. The hallway was silent. No laughters, no footsteps, no door slamming. Well, we returned to watching TV in our bedroom and settled in for bed, when we see our sheer curtains to our bedroom door swift upward as if someone was standing in the doorway, lifting up the curtain. This was not like the wind blowing it away from the door, but as if someone standing there lifted those curtains. I was so scared, my brother and I started screaming. We startled my dad, who had been sleeping this whole time. Seconds after this happened, my aunt from Puerto Rico called to say her husband took his own life in his home. My grandmother thinks he came to say goodbye to us since he was very close to my father. My father insisted that my mother accompany him to a reading because he wasn't getting better and he was thinking bad thoughts. When they did his reading, my father was told that my father's niece and boyfriend prepared something so that they could remove my father from his job and her boyfriend could be the replacement. My father was also informed that this was to take years, so he wouldn't find work, and eventually, from the distress and the anxiety, he would get depressed and take his own life. My father recovered through the grace of God, but it was not easy. It took a lot of mental work. And after that, I've never experienced anything like it again. And I hope I never will, because these things do exist. Thanks, MIRIAM. Hi Daisy, my name is Nick and I live in a small town in California. I've had quite a few paranormal experiences, but for now I'm going to tell you about some experiences at a haunted apartment that I used to live with my husband and eventually my 2 roommates, who are also a couple. We no longer live there and we moved to a different location. Thankfully. My husband and I first moved to a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in our early 20s before we got married. Our first few months were uneventful until our first roommate, Angel, moved in with us. He's one of those people who attract the paranormal and is relatively sensitive to it. Something had unfortunately followed him to our apartment when he moved in with us. After a couple of weeks of Angel settling into the spare bedroom, weird stuff started happening. I would wake up to use the bathroom at 2 or 3 in the morning. When I would walk into the small hallway and stand in front of the bathroom door to open it, I would feel something looking at me from the pitch darkness of the dining room, living room across the hall. I refused to look. I would use the bathroom and scurry back to my bedroom and close the door. But I was not the only person to feel this. Some of our friends that would stay the night would feel it or see a shadow standing in the hallway when everyone in the apartment was asleep. There were also times where I would be washing the dishes or watching TV and I would see a black blur running from the corner of my vision, and I would get goosebumps and just try to simply ignore it. Some days I would get so uneasy, especially going past Angel's room in the hallway when I would be home alone. I always closed his room door out of fear that something was watching me from the doorway. Eventually, we found out what was living with us at the apartment, and it was unfortunately not human, and Angel was the poor soul who had to see it. Angel was in his room one night after a long day of work. He woke up sweaty in the middle of the night. His room was very dark. The only source of light was his computer charging cable that glowed a faint blue in the darkness of his floor. Angel turned over on his left side toward the door and closet. He got an uneasy feeling and looked up. There, in the corner of the dark bedroom on the ceiling, he saw what looked like a very bony, skinny thing with long black thinning hair and a white dress gripping the walls with its grotesque long fingers. Eyes were sunken in and beady, staring down at him. It had a nasty grin on its twisted face. It was staring at him for what felt like an eternity until he blinked and it slowly faded away into the darkness. The next morning, Angel told my husband and I what happened. My husband was rather skeptical, brushing it off. I was very uneasy, knowing I wasn't just feeling and seeing things. There was actually something in the apartment. Angel asked if I would bless his room and sage it in fear of going to sleep. So I prepared myself during the week and performed the cleansings along with my husband, who didn't seem to worry that much. Nothing bothered Angel afterwards, and his day was relatively peaceful. After the cleansing, I, for whatever reason, became sensitive. I would get lots of nightmares and night terrors from it, but I will send those stories in for another time. So that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. A big thank you to everyone that sent in their stories. As always, thank you guys so much. But if you have a scary story that you like to share on my channel, please feel free to send it in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. All that information will be down below. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all in my next one. Bye.